you mean it. The first is Mati Tenli. What is he asking for? And the more important is, and the other one is, who is Vayachsheveh Lo Tzedakah? Who is it? Is it God who thinks for him tzedakah, or is it Abraham who thinks about God tzedakah? And the third is Bameda. What is Bamed in this context? Is it how should I trust you? Is it?
Yes, the German translation I think is from where, right, Axel? Voran, from what?
Yes.
Yes.
Or how. You can translate it how.
But I'm not sure, to take up Rav Shabtai's question, I'm not sure that it doesn't fit Abraham. Because so far, when God told Abraham to do things, he went and did them. And he didn't ask any questions. And we will see that in the following as well. When there's going to be the Akedat Yitzchak, he is going to do what he's going to be told. But when he is being perhaps in an open conversation, as when God comes and tells him about Sodom, and as it is now, Abraham is acting as a free agent, and he is saying why or wherefore or how, and he is speaking to God almost as an equal. I mean, as long as God doesn't request him to do anything.
So you say when God tells him don't worry, he finds reasons to worry.
He didn't say that he worries. He didn't say afterwards that he worries. He just said, don't worry, I protect you. But he also says, I will give you great, what does it say there? That was alone. I will give you a lot. I will give you a great, what's the word in English now?
Reward.
Great reward. Thank you. The reward has disappeared. I will give you a great reward. And and Abraham says, what do you want to reward me with?
Okay.
I mean, the world, I'm old. There is no more reward that I can need or that I can have.
Except the promise that God has given him.
He tends to accept it as Damesek Eliezer. Uven Meshek Beti Damesek Eliezer. He is going to inherit me. So maybe my son is not going to be my natural son. He is going to be my spiritual son.
But that's not what he wants.
Well, yeah, he wants, but he can't get it. So that's it. He doesn't. He answers back. All I'm saying is that it is not out of character for Abraham. We see it before, we see it later. He argues with God. He stands before God as an equal. That's all. That's the only comment I wanted to make. I'm not saying that he is not perhaps bitter. I'm not saying that he doesn't want a son. I'm not saying that he is not feeling perhaps even a bit disappointed for not having had a son so far. But all I'm saying is that it's very much fitting for Abraham to react this way.
Okay.
I would have one question on that is, do we see in any other place before Abraham being ironic? Because if he's saying, let's assume that he is talking to God and in a way challenging that God has promised him the offspring but has not given, and so he is arguing, saying, well, is my heir going to be Eliezer? So if we would say that he, not what Hilda said now, okay, he is just saying it, plainly saying it, and not exactly challenging. If he is challenging God, he is being kind of ironic, I think.
Ricardo, we call it in Hebrew, you're being like a Polish Jew. You know, yes, it's okay, you give me a lot. Who inherits me? It's this guy, very good. I'll sit in the darkness and cry. Yes, okay. Let's see. Teresa, you have? How do you read these verses?
Sorry,
I asked
can't
what,
understand you.
well, we are waiting for your input. You are the newest member here. So you get, it's your chance.
Which verse?
The verses 1 to 6. You see the verses on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. What is the point here? Some sort of complaint, someone who is in depression, he woke up on the wrong side, you know, it's, he doesn't sound happy, Avraham. No.
We lost your voice.
No, you're mute.
She also doesn't hear us.
No, you don't hear us. Axel, in the meantime.
Yes, I'm wondering what does in verse 6, what does He'emen mean? I mean, if you trust somebody, okay, but trust is not the same as knowledge. So there's difference between I know and I trust.
In fact, trust is the absence, only in the absence of knowledge. I don't know, but I trust you anyway.
Yes, but doesn't that include some, or the possibility of doubt? So afterwards he asked, how can I know that I will own the land? So I don't see a very strict contradiction in this verse 6. Abraham trusted the Lord, and afterwards, although he trusted him, he asked him, how can I know? I mean, that's in my point of view, it's a difference between, okay, I know you, and so I don't have any questions. But when I trust you, there are maybe still some questions left that I can ask you.
Okay, so how do you interpret verse 6? The entire, I know that in Lutheran theories there is a lot about it, about verse 6.
Exactly.
So maybe you could try to help us with this. How do you see verse 6? You say trusting is not knowing. Okay, so
but
what do you do with verse 6?
But God also rewards the trust with that he acknowledges Abraham as somebody who is
Righteous.
Righteous, yes, exactly. Thank you. I looked for the English term for tzedakah, or tzedek. Tzedakah is a term here. So to be rewarded, or to be the fact that God looks upon you as a person of tzedakah does not imply that you have to give in fully. I mean, to trust is not to put your ratio or your brain at the wardrobe.
It seems to me that this verse is basically saying that I read in the following way. Okay, so God talked with Abraham, and he's asking for his offspring, which actually God has promised in a way. And so God reassures him, he trusts. But what does it mean? It's just because he had practical experience with what God told him and what happened. So God tells him, well, go out of your land in chapter 12. So he goes out. And at the end of the day now, he was blessed. I mean, he had this scheme that he gave Sarah to Parot, telling that she was his sister. And at the end of the day, God helped him and her. So he has a practical and experiential reason to trust God. And after God reassures him, clearly reassures him in a doubt that he may have had, he has no reason not to. So he trusts him.
Okay, I just want to go to a connection that really bothers me. I'm sure you all read it, and I'm sure everyone that ever prepared the sermon knows about it, but just I want to point it out. At the end, there is a covenant, a contract that is struck, and actually it's all the background that he will have a child, and the child will be his, and then there is one second. No, doesn't work. Here. Now look at this. And this, I think, it comes right afterwards. There are two different chapters. But in the text, if we don't have chapters, it comes immediately afterwards. So it says, and Sarai had no child, and that's it. So it's against the trust, it's with the trust. I'm talking just actually about the first verse. So Abraham trusts God, and Sarai doesn't. Sarai finds a solution. They have a promise, and the promise is absolute. God told him no condition on the promise. And here, someone gives up. And Udi made a beautiful movie, or he was involved with very beautiful movie, showing the people in modern times how, someone is in a crisis, like Sarai is, she gives up and she says, okay, we need another solution. So I want to ask you,
giving up. In my opinion, that's the opposite. She is the one who is acting, because the promise in chapter 15, verse let me just find it. It says, I remember in my heart. It says that the son is going to come out from Abraham. It's not telling now that it is coming from Sarah. It's coming from Abraham. Me'echa.
So okay, it says here. But I want to ask you something, Ricardo. Again, I told people before that they speak a little bit like lawyers. There is the intention and the way that people understand something, and there is the words. When God told him someone that will come out of your loins, he will inherit you. What was the understanding? What was the implication? I'm not taking the word. If you are a lawyer, you say, I didn't promise you, I didn't promise Sarah. But what do you think the intention was? When you read this, imagine you are Abraham, and you have only one wife, which is Sarah. And you took Sarah, and you went the whole way from Aram. What do you think the meaning is?
What it seems...
If you don't have a lawyer with you.
So it would seem to me that, it will come out from me and my wife. However, the way that I see how Sarah took it, I am over 80 years old. I still have no child. It seems to me that God have given everything. We just have to act. And since God give a promise to Abraham, maybe it won't come out from me.
So I just
It
want to
will
ask.
come
Very
out
good.
from our house.
Okay.
So I have to
That's
act
not
in
necessarily.
order.
But you
to-
don't think, you don't read some disappointment there? You think it's all happy and you say, oh, okay, not
No,
me,
no,
it'll be
Sarah
Hagar.
is
How do you read it? If you'll have to
Sarah
write
is saying
music
that
to
she's-
this. Yeah. If
Sarah
you
is saying
had to write music in that. So it'll be happy music, wonderful from our home, not from me. Or you'll say, I don't have a child and very sadly we have to find some other solution.
Well, I read on the same way that God told Abraham to go to a place, and then there was this huge famine, and he had to go to somewhere else.
So you think he was happy about it or he was disappointed?
It seems that he was not happy, but that's the way God worked. It must be a reason.
Okay.
So, I see that Sarah decided to act, and since God did not rebuke her, and everything went well, so maybe that was the right thing to do. Maybe because of that, she had the opportunity to be given a child.
Again, Ricardo, this is I'm more interested in the issue of trust, not the action. You see, the action could be you are right, but the thing is the mood. Someone who has a covenant with God, I think, should be happy, should feel that the promise will be fulfilled in the most wonderful way. He does not read the contract and read the words and see, it's this word, it means
But
this, it
it's
doesn't mean that.
That the covenant between two people is really equal, but the covenant between a person and God is never quite equal. At least it can't be equal. And God doesn't say, I will give you a son. God says you will have a son. And I'm not being a lawyer here. I'm actually just using the words to explain what we were talking several times already before about what does blessing mean. And if God said, perhaps Abraham and Sarah already came to the conclusion, okay, as I said before, we are not going to have a natural son. Damascus Eliezer is going to be our spiritual son. And here comes God and he says, come on, people, you've given up too early. You are going to have a natural son. And that makes Sarah to think two things. A, perhaps it's not going to be from me. Perhaps it's going to be only from you. So I might be exempt, but you are not. And secondly, even I am not exempt because first of all, perhaps I have to give up some of my place besides you. And secondly, maybe by giving up a little bit, I will get more in return because she says, Ulai ibaneh mimena, which might mean perhaps her son will be considered my son, but it also might mean perhaps after that, God knows how, and I mean it literally, God knows how, I will also have a son that
Axel,
might be.
tell me something. I'm sure you read these verses in sermons many times, no? Or you heard sermons about this chapter.
Yeah.
When you read verse 6,
Yeah.
what mood do you see in this verse? I mean, Avram's mood, how is it? Strong, smiling, happy? Or you say, okay, you tell me, let's accept it and go on?
The mood, I think it's a the mood is what's the mood of trust?
Yes.
Heroic.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say heroic. I mean, it feels perfect. It feels right.
Okay,
You know?
now we'll go to verse 8. How do you
Yeah.
read verse 8? What is the mood in verse 8?
Okay, the mood in verse 8 is a little bit tuned down, right? I mean, there is a doubt, or maybe it's just he wants to know more by God.
Now, what happens if we say that the verses go together? So there is a change. You say there is a change of mood between verse 6 and verse 8. So I think we should explain this change by verse 7. because this is the only thing that changed. What do you see? Do you see anything in verse 7 that will cause this change of mood?
Okay, in verse 5, we hear about the offspring of
Right.
Abraham. And in verse 7, we read about the land that he is going to own. And in verse 5, God shows him the sky and the stars in the sky. But in verse 7, he has nothing. Well, maybe it's a parallel that he says, I have brought you from Ur. But there is no metaphor for the owning of the land as the stars in the sky. No, if Abram looks to the sky, he can see the stars. So that's something his trust can focus on. But if he, God doesn't show him how he can own the land, or how. Well, he didn't give him anything visible.
Very nice. It's a very nice way of reading it. I like it.
Okay, so let's continue. Now look at verse 9.
What do you think? I mean,
No, I'm just continuing. The truth is that I am very confused here. I don't have.
Okay, so share your confusion with us.
But let's go on. So you think that Avraham wants a metaphor? He wants something visible, something that he could feel. So we see verse 9 and the whole thing that comes afterwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now he has a metaphor. Now he has something. He has some vision. So you think this was the solution? So first there were the stars, and now he has the story with the cut animals.
I have two small questions. First is, does verse 7 occurs right after whatever happens from verse 1 to verse 6? That's my first question.
We assume, for now, for the sake of reading the text, we assume that it goes together, even if it did not happen at the same time. But the text is sentence after a sentence.
So
right,
the second,
Daniel is our expert on text.
The second thing is, we have now in verse 15, chapter 15, the first time that Abraham, in a way, asks or challenges God, and it worked. So he asked, and God have assured him, and then God says something else, and so he does whatever worked. So he's now asking how I'm going to do it, or how I'm going to do that, how I'm going to know that I will have it. So that can be a possibility.
I want to ask one more thing. God tells Abraham that he'll have a child. When? So when I tell Udi that he'll get money, if he doesn't get it in an hour, he's getting angry, and what about my promises? Now, when God promises Abraham a child, it means now, right now. And you see about an Axel, about inheriting the land and the metaphor, look at verse 13. How long it's going to take? 400 years. So you know, okay, Udi, I'll promise you money, wait 400 years and you'll get it. It makes you happy, you know, when he tells Abraham it will take 400 years.
I want to take a reverse to the beginning of the chapter, and I think it might be an answer for you also. I mean, we all ignore the first word, which is achar dvarim ha'ele. Now, what is the achar dvarim ha'ele? What's the connection between here and what happened? Because, you know, Abraham here is supposed to be at least 30 years after he came to Israel, something like that, after he was
No,
sent?
how do you know? There is no date.
Estimation.
How do you
I mean,
know?
Question.
If you read the text itself, I think that it is not dated to show that the date is not relevant.
Okay, so I mean, if you read before what I try to do now, the last three chapters were about Lot.
About the war, yes.
About Lot.
Okay.
Lot is the focus. The war is the third stage with Lot. But if you go through it, it's from the separation. Now, Lot is being time and time again mentioned from Lech Lecha. Every time he goes with Lot. He goes with Lot. He goes with Lot, and then he separates from Lot. So maybe we can see that in the beginning he thought that Lot would be his continuation, because God promised him to have to have a nation already in Lech Lecha. It's not the idea to have a nation from you is already in Lech Lecha. So the question here about God, about Mati Tenli, is related to the past.
But the separation from Lot is before the war, not after.
Yes, but I mean, it's a whole. I see it as a Yechidah Shlema. It's a whole story.
Okay, but I don't get your point. Let's say it's one. It continues the separation. No, but let's already just finish. So, what do you mean? Okay, so this Achar Advarim Ele means after he separated from Lot. Let's say. So what?
What I'm saying is this: God promised him to be a nation, and until now, he's not a nation. I mean, if you're talking about fulfilling the promise to him, he was promised already in Lech Lecha. And nothing is happening in this direction. Not only that it's not happening, it's happening the other way. Because if he could have some thought that maybe his family, Lot, will be continuing, now Lot has separated. So
you mean instead of becoming bigger and bigger, in becoming smaller and smaller?
Right.
I see. Okay, now I see.
But not only that, you are dividing the land. In the separation with Lot, you are dividing the land.
I see. So he doesn't get more, he gets less. Okay. Now I understand.
Now then comes the war, and at the end of the war, again, there could have been a possibility that Lot will be Baal Tshuva, will understand that he was saved just now by Abraham, and it would be a happy reunion. But that doesn't happen. What happens is something, the separation keeps on going. So I think, I mean, if I have to ask, by the way, I agree totally with Hilda that Abraham, I could call him the first Orthodox Jew. He does everything God tells him, but he's a total epicurus about what he believes. The big gap, I mean, that's a Leibovitz, right? Every time he has a command, he will do it. He will say, aye, sir. But the minute it's not about acting, it's about believing or thinking, he is willing to give a big fight to God and disbelieve and contest and so on. So I think here comes sort of this part of Abraham that we haven't met before.
I just want to make a round. Everyone would tell me what you think about verse 6. Take verse 6 in its entirety. It's only 5 words. So let everyone explain to us how does he see, and he trusted God, and Vayachsheveh lo tzedakah, and so God considered it as tzedakah. So the translation is gerechtigkeit, but what? How do you? Tzedek.
You made a decision here, which I'm not sure is right. Vayachsheveh lo. Me le me. What's the grammar?
Whatever. So you first tell us, how do you interpret the pasuk? You have total freedom.
Did you see Teresa's apology that she has left us because her Wi-Fi is probably down? It's in the chat. Udi, you can probably see it.
We chatted in German. She wrote that she had some difficulties
with the internet. Yes.
Yeah, she also wrote it in English. I just wanted everyone to notice that.
Yes.
I didn't get that.
Okay, so Odi, you are the first. You said who it is. How do you interpret? how you really, without thinking about previous thing that you read it now. What do you think it means?
Sorry.
That's
I think it has a double meaning.
What?
Like many times in the Bible. It has two meanings, and I think the Bible wants us to have the two meanings. Because otherwise he couldn't have been very clear.
Okay, so what are the two
There's one
meanings?
possibility is that God considered him tzedakah, but it's not very clear. Tzedakah is not gracious, like where we take today. Tzedakah is tzedek in the Bible. So tzedek is
righteousness, right?
No, it's not righteousness. Tzedek is not righteousness.
It's just justice.
He's righteous.
Justice. Yeah, justice. It's not righteousness. I don't think in the Bible tzedakah means anytime. Like we said.
Okay, just tell us what the way we won't argue. Just let us hear what you say.
So the only way I think what Avram says is yes. It's not it doesn't. God. It's Avram saying "Vayachshavia lo tzedakah."
Okay, he says that God is just.
Yeah. Not after.
Okay, and the other interpretation. And you say there is another possible interpretation.
The other possibility is, of course, the other way around, which is that God thinks that Abraham is just.
Why?
Just, and that's not. That's very problematic. Why?
Why? So how do you interpret Vayachshavea? Vayachshavea means you imply that he considered something.
Abraham was thinking.
No, this is the first interpretation, but the second.
The second is because of the first part of the verse, because Abraham trusted him.
Okay.
Why is it tzedakah? What's the tzedakah in Abraham?
Okay, next, Daniel, how do you read this verse? But now you see, this is the first time you see it in your life.
I'll be honest. I'm not sure what to make of Vayachshaveh lo tzedakah. That has always puzzled me. The fact that it's ambiguous is doubly puzzling.
And it's definitely ambiguous, right?
It's definitely ambiguous. I don't know what to make of it. What I see here is a difference, possibly a difference between the two levels of promises that God is giving him. One is about children, and there he believes God, and one is about the land, and there he's skeptical.
That's what Axel said, yes.
Right,
so.
Exactly. So I definitely endorse that. I think part of what's going on here and part of the need for the promise is, or part of the need for a symbol or an indication of God's promise is part of Avram's ongoing struggle, which is God has promised him all of this. His life is completely dedicated to this promise, right? He gives up his homeland, he gives up everything for this promise, and he's nervous. The land is more anxiety-inducing than the children, because the children he's never had, whereas the land and the family or the homeland he gave up, and now he has to rely on God's promise. So I think that's the source of the difference between the children and the land.
Okay, so so how do you see verse 6?
Again, the belief in, you're saying, how do I understand, why is he ma'amin? Why does he believe God?
What does it mean? Well, just tell us how you say it. Repeat this verse in your own words.
Just one thing, can I be a philolog? You're always translating the Hemin, believe. I don't think the Hemin is believe, it is trust.
Well, that's what Axel did, and I agree.
As opposed to what? What else would it mean?
To our Hebrew, it's wrong. If you go over the Bible, all over the Bible, lehamin means to trust.
That's what Axel said before.
Okay, no, so he's trusting God. He trusts that God will provide an heir for him, who will not be his servants. That's what he's trusting.
So he trusted God. Vayachshaveh lo tzedakah.
Yes.
What do you think? What does it?
Again,
if there was music to this, how would it be played?
It would be the kind of swell of violins. I think this is a positive moment. I think it's a moment at which he comes to terms with something that he's been struggling with until now.
So you think something is won, a point is made?
Yes, I think a point is made, and then the point, and then he goes further, and then there's, as Axel said, a downturn in terms of his own feelings, because there's still something else that he's very uncertain about.
חזי,
One of the things
אתה
that
רוצה
we-
לנסות? רק רגע. חזי, אתה רוצה לנסות?
לדעתי, הסמיכות פרשיות שאפשר ללמוד כאן אל הפרק הקודם, זה דווקא היחס של אברהם אל שכר. אברהם לא רוצה לקבל שכר ממלך סדום, וכמעט באותה צורה הוא גם לא רוצה לקבל שכר מהקדוש ברוך הוא, עד שהוא מבין שזה שכר של פרי בטן, שכר נפש, אותו שכר שמלך סדום לא הציע לו בכלל.
אוקיי,
ודווקא את השכר הזה אני חושב שהוא כן מוכן לקבל,
אוקיי.
ולכן האמין בהשם זה אברהם, ולדעתי יש פה חילוף נושא באמצע הפסוק.
אז תסביר.
ויחשביה לו לצדקה, אני חושב שהקדוש ברוך הוא,
לא לצדקה, רק שנדייק, ויחשביה לא צדקה, אוקיי.
ויחשביה לא צדקה, זה הקדוש ברוך הוא חשב לאברהם את זה כצדקה,
שמה?
שהוא מאמין בו. כי זה באמת לא אמור להיות מובן מאליו. אנחנו צריכים לזכור שכבר הייתה לאברהם הבטחה אחת, בפרק הקודם, ששם שמתי את זרעך כעפר הארץ, שם אברהם לא מגיב אליה בכלל, שנותנים לו הבטחה אל הכוכבים, משום מה זה עושה לו יותר משהו, צריך להבין למה ההבדל הזה, אני לא יודע. ואני חושב שיש פה שני נושאים בפסוק, בפסוק 6. והאמין בהשם זה...
כן, אבל זה לא נורא, כי השם זה האובייקט של הפרזה הקודמת, אז בהחלט ויחשביה, האובייקט נהיה סובייקט, זה לא נורא.
וגם זה לא נורא, זה קורה הרבה בפסוקים, הוא גם האובייקט של הנושא של פסוק 7.
כן.
זו דעתי.
Axel, you followed what Chezi said?
Yes, I did not get all of it.
Sorry.
So I will translate what he said. He said that Abraham refused the reward from the king of Sodom in the previous chapter. So Abraham doesn't want riches. He wants children. So when God tells him, you'll get a lot of reward, he thinks that he is afraid that God offers him money again. So he said, I don't want money, I want children. Right, Chezi?
I think Chezi said something else. Can you share for a second? Can you allow me to share the screen for a second?
Ma?
Can you allow me to share my screen for a second? I'm asking
to share your screen. Let's see, I will do it. Allow share. Allow record. 1 second. Okay, say it in the meantime. I'll work on it.
I think Chezi was talking also about chapter 13, the end of the Lot story.
Right.
Do you see my screen now or not?
No, it'll take a second. I have to find out how to do it. It's a new version. Just talk
anyway, okay, it's chapter 13, and when Avram separates, God says to him, "Tai necha ro'eh," and then He gives him the whole country. He says, "Haaretz asher ata ro'eh, lecha etzmena ulezaracha ad olam." So first of all, He promises the land. This is the other way around. He starts with the land. And then he says, "V'samti et zaracha ka'afar ha'aretz." So actually, everything that's here in our chapter was already in chapter 13.
Except that chapter 13 also has a command, which doesn't seem to ring any bells for Abraham. Kum v'talech ba'aretz, and he does the opposite. He went and sits down.
Yeah, well, okay, you're opening a whole discussion now about chapter 13.
I know.
No, but all I'm saying is, you're right.
אתה יכול לעשות share, אודי.
Why can't I?
Okay, we know the verses. It's okay.
Okay, now it is. Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm talking here.
Yeah.
When Lot separates.
Yeah.
Okay, can you see the chapter?
Yes, we see it.
Yes, we see it.
So it's very clear here that he promised him the land. Okay.
זה בסדר, we see it. You don't have to mark it. We see it very clearly.
And the zaracha ke'afar haaretz.
Right. We see verse 16. Okay, we see it.
So what's the relation between this and the promises here?
Okay.
Because Abraham, why is it they say here Vayamin B'Hashem or not Vayamin B'Hashem? What's the reaction?
It's actually very similar. He does the same thing. He says thank you. He says Vayiven Sham Mizbeach. He built an altar. And in our chapter he says, okay, I trust you.
Okay, Hilda, your turn. How do you explain? אתה יכול לעשות את הסטופ שייר שלך?
I'm completely with Axel. Completely with Axel. He needed trust. He trusted. The fact that he trusted was an act of. I know that tzedakah is associated with tzedek and with mishpat, but it is never quite the same because they always appear one near the other. They're never one.
So what do you say?
I think it's righteousness. I'm with Axel. I'm completely with Axel
yes,
here.
so but what does it mean? Why is it righteousness or whatever it is?
Well, God thinks it's only right that he should trust him because he knows what is going to come. He also thinks that it's fair enough that he is doubting because he hasn't had anything else to build on so far. So that's it. God thinks it's okay that Abraham stood up to him, that he asked the question he asked, and that he was happy with the answer, although the answer was not a very full one or a very fulfilling one. And that's why it was an act of righteousness or of just or whichever way you want to take it.
Okay, I want to ask another thing. Just one Ricardo.
I wanted to say how I read this verse, and I read this I read that first of all, tzedakah here is the first time that the word tzedakah appears on the.
But the text assumes we know what it is.
Okay, so the text assumes that we know that tzaddik or tzedakah, tzaddik is the one who does things right, and tzedakah is to do something right. So the way that I hear that I read is that because Abraham now asked and tried to not only be passive about what was happening, but to actively at least try to do something, he was considered, in one hand, he tried to ask and to say, well, God, you promised me my son, I haven't gotten it yet. And in another hand, he trusts God. So you have this duality that happens at the same time. At the same time, he is asking, at the same time, he is trusting. And because of that, God considers this in his favor, or consider this to his merit, or counts him as a tzaddik.
Okay, so I would like to point out, we have to finish. We have 5 minutes, so I want to use 1 minute to propose a question, to propose a point for thinking. Let's say you are in the army and you got a command to do something, you have to obey it. But let's say that you are not a private, you are a general, and you get a command. So you ask, listen, tell me your strategy, because in the way that they fulfill the command will depend according to my understanding of the strategy. So you can get two answers. One, don't ask questions, just do what he tell you, idiot, or we'll explain you the strategy, and you will fulfill the command according to your understanding of the strategy. So it depends how high up you are. The lower you are, of course, you have to do and not ask questions. Now, like Udi said, before Abraham obeyed anything that he was told to do, he did. He made decisions according to what happened at the moment. But when God tells him, there is a future, in verse 1, there is a future ahead of you, so maybe Abraham asks, listen, tell me the details so I know in the next junction I will know how to act. So the trust and the belief and the knowing are different things, like Axel said, but not in the theological sense. but more maybe in the practical sense. He says, if you give me, if I don't have a child, so okay, so I go on living and I'll obey your orders, no problem. But if I have a son, I have to direct my life with the focus that I'm going to have a son. And if I'm going to inherit the land right now, for example, maybe I have to hire soldiers or to get an army. So God tells him, no, you have an exile ahead of you, 400 years. So you have to prepare for an exile. You have to train your people how to behave outside of the land. You have to tell him, listen, you have a vision of a land, and to carry this vision for 400 years, it's not easy. So maybe it's just Abraham tells God, tell me the strategy so I will know what to do. There is, and this is something that has nothing to do to theology, but just to practical fulfilling of God's commandments.
May I propose something?
Yes, sure.
As we found out, Abraham for the first time is asking God. This is right here in this chapter.
Right.
Before that, he listened what God said and he obeyed. And maybe God considered these questions as a confession of Abraham or some kind of confession. So he started trusting him, maybe. You can obey somebody.
A confession that he has doubts. What kind of confession?
Confession that he cares about God. So before this story, we read that God tells something and Abraham obeyed.
Right.
But we didn't know anything about why did he obey. I mean, he listened to God and he did what he said.
You mean the why for what purpose, you mean?
Yeah.
The why is because God told him.
The questions are a signal for interest. I want to know more.
Right,
and
okay.
You can obey and being fully disinterested. You only say, okay, I have no alternative. So I obey. But
right.
Maybe I don't see any sense in it, but I obey.
Yes.
And here he started asking and asks for the future that God may give him. And so he started a relation.
But Axel, as Hilda said, he's not questioning what to do. He's not questioning.
No, so Axel says the why. For what purpose?
But this is before that. This is actually not a relation. It's somebody who obeys. And a question when I ask somebody, I'm connected to somebody else, and to obey to a command is that really a connection or a relation?
Is this let me just piggyback on what Axel's saying. Is this the first conversation between Abraham and God?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Then that's really significant. We can view it as a confession. We can view it as
how do you? I don't think confession. Just one second, Daniel. I don't think that Axel meant confession in the sense that you think.
Of course.
Actually, I think they do.
There's a deepening. The very fact that there's a conversation here indicates a deepening of the relationship.
Yes,
exactly. In order of magnitude.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I reaffirm that because of this relationship that God have given it in, it was nice in God's eyes that Abraham did this, that Abraham in a way challenged him and at the same time trusting.
So Axel, in your explanation is very brilliant. I just want to ask if you are talking about a theological point or practical point when Abraham talks to God. You wanted to understand God in the theological way sense or in the practical sense?
The beauty of Axel's explanation is that it doesn't really matter. The very fact that they strike up a relationship is, of course, because it's with God, it's theological. But the very fact that Abraham speaks to God means that there is a relationship between them, and I think that's what's so beautiful about Axel's explanation.
Can you have a conversation with God without it being theological?
No,
Exactly.
but the question is what is the motive? So what Axel say, whatever God will tell him is fine, like a child cries until he hears his mother's talking. So this is like the metaphor, I think, what Nachon, Axel, to what you meant.
Yeah,
He wants to feel his mother close, but he couldn't care less about the meaning of the words that she's saying.
Yeah.
As long as she's there to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
This is
you know what? We have to stop now. So why don't
Okay.
we continue in 2 weeks about this? Axel, maybe you'll prepare something about this, about the first real relationship between Abraham and God.
Just have to look in my planner. We have February 10, right?
Should be, right.
No, I have a meeting and
A week afterwards?
yes, it's perfect. February 17 is fine.
Okay. So, 17 February, we meet again, and everyone is prepared, is invited to because we'll discuss this, and I want to discuss the first 3 verses of the next chapter about Hagar and Ishmael. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Bye-bye.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
עכשיו רק תישאר רגע לגבי